just want to say sorry to the fans, all the U.S. fans that were pulling for us, that wanted to go to the Russia, that believed in us, and we let down an entire nation today.
This is an utter embarrassment with the amount of money that is in Major League Soccer and in this sport. You don't deserve to go to the World Cup.
8 long years later, the U.S. is headed back to the world's biggest stage. Save us a seat in Doha. Don't call it a comeback.
We're talking football today, but not my kind of football. We're talking football.
We're talking about the world's kind of football after all. And yes, the U.S. men's national team is back in the World Cup after trying to put us back on the path we'd been on 8 years ago.
But also, it's Thanksgiving. What food are you kicking to the side, and what's making a comeback? You're going to have to hear from me later.
Listen, I'll defer to you on the game of football. On the game of food, Dave Dameshek is the way to go. By the way, I am Dave Dameshek.
And I'm Ryan Shazier from Wondery. This is Don't Call It a Comeback.
Don't call it a comeback. I've been waiting on this moment my whole life. Can't call it a comeback. Everybody to your feet, make arenas rise. Yeah, I'm saying from the left to right, we get it on tonight. We do it all, but we don't back down. Just give me one shot, one chance, I'ma take it. Fixing up the game, but these records I keep on breaking.
Shek, let's get into this U.S. soccer team comeback story.
Why, how very patriotic of you, 5-0. Yes, the U.S. of A. was finally looking like a real competitor on the international stage by 2018. But when our men's national team collapsed in qualifying and missed the 2018 World Cup, we discovered a new low point for American soccer.
If this failure does not wake up everyone from U.S. soccer to Major League Soccer, from pay-to-play to broadcasters to everything, then we're all insane. Because the definition of insanity is doing the exact same thing, knowing the result.
Love it.
And if we don't change it, and I mean we, everyone in U.S. soccer, then what are we doing?
2018 was the first time the U.S. failed to earn a World Cup berth since the 80s. Adding insult to injury, one of the best-funded programs in the world was eliminated by Trinidad and Tobago?
That should have never happened with the $1 billion plus that is going into Major League Soccer and youth development. That should have never happened.
Shazier, should Trinidad and Tobago beat us in anything ever?
They got Carnival, they got Limbo, they got beaches, but that's about it.
And also, I think it's a little unfair that they get to team up. We definitely beat Tobago or Trinidad, but Trinidad and Tobago? Either way, after manager Bruce Arena stepped down, USMNT rebuilt its roster to be one of the youngest teams it's ever put forward, and so far, it's working.
We're going to the World Cup. That's all that matters, man. That's all that matters. Going to the World Cup. See you in Qatar.
We'll be the youngest team in the World Cup in 2022, boys. The youngest team. But guess what? We're going to do some damage.
Our national team's on the comeback trail in Qatar right now, and we're doing it with only one player coming back from the last World Cup team, 28-year-old DeAndre Yedlin. How's that for some new blood, Shazier?
It's a new era for soccer in the U.S., baby.
Yeah, alongside international superstar Christian Pulisic and a roster of exciting young talent, it might be time to believe that we will win again.
I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win.
From on the men's national team comeback run in 2022 World Cup, Luis Miguel-Echegaray, host, writer, analyst for ESPN FC and ESPN Deportes. Welcome to the show, Luis.
Hey, man. It's an absolute pleasure, Ryan. What's up, Dave and Ryan? I'm so happy to be here.
So take us back to 2018 and how things were inside, the men's soccer team when we missed the World Cup.
Oh, boy. All right. Let me try and condense this for a little bit, just because, it has been a long journey, despite the fact that it may look like it hasn't been the case. The United States men's national team failed to qualify for Russia 2018 at the World Cup. That was for the first time since 1986. So it was a massive shock to the system, to both the squad, the players, the fan, and most importantly, the federation. Because that's really what happened in that moment. The moment the USMNT didn't qualify, by the way, a 2-1 loss against tiny island Trinidad and Tobago was the final nail in the coffin. And that meant that the US was not able to go to the World Cup. So from that moment, Ryan, what happened was everything had to change. Every single facet of the federation. The president, Sunil Gulati, had to go. Obviously, there was a change from Jurgen Klinsmann to Bruce Arena and the management perspective. They had to go. And it was tough because you had your Christian Pulisic, right, who are clearly big stars now, playing for Chelsea, etc. But at that time, he was only 18. And then you had the veteran players like Clint Dempsey and Tim Howard, who were really just facing the final days and years and months of their career. So it was a team in transition that just didn't make it. So between then and now, the federation changed, the management changed, and most importantly, what happened was there was a much more aggressive approach to grow the game both domestically and find talent internationally. So now there's a lot more Christian Pulisic out there.
Well, let's lean into that because it feels like he is the face of 2022 U.S. men's soccer team. Is it just as simple as an upgrade in talent, but he is the one who is expected to carry the day if the team is going to make any hay in the World Cup this year?
You know, Dave, that's a good question. And actually, Christian Pulisic, as good as he is not. Not everything is now reliant on him. That was perhaps, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when the U.S. were like going through the steps of improving year by year, tournament by tournament. That's not the case anymore. Christian Pulisic is undoubtedly one of the big stars, but he's been struggling for his club, Chelsea, in the Premier League, not getting enough minutes. He wanted to leave before the end of the transfer window. It wasn't to be, of course, so he had to stay. So he's actually been struggling through his own. What happened in that period, Dave, between 2018 and 2022 was that there was a much more aggressive approach from Greg Berhalter, the new manager, to go out there and try, find talent that is both good domestically, but also players that are playing well in Europe. So now Pulisic, right, who came from Borussia Dortmund, went to Chelsea, but now you have Brendan Aronson, who plays for Premier League team Leeds United. The same with his teammate, Tyler Adams, who, in my opinion, is the United States men's national team most important player. Yunus Musa, right, who's got such an amazing background, who started in the Arsenal Academy and now plays in the Spanish League, La Liga. Weston McKennie, who plays for Juventus. So now you have this talent of players who play in Europe, Champions League winners, because Pulisic has won a Champions League, players that play in really good teams and really good leagues, and now all coming together. So that's the good news. The challenging news, which I'm sure we'll talk about, is the fact that they're really young, right? The average age is 25. Only 3 players are 30 or over. These are baby American men that are coming into it. But look, they don't care, man. They're just going out there saying, I don't care what you think of us. We're out there to try and prove a point.
When comebacks happen in America, I don't know how it is everywhere else, but when comebacks happen in America, we expect, greatness. So, what should we expect from this team coming back from not making it in 2018 to now being one of the youngest teams in the World Cup to, possibly, what can we expect?
Man, expectations. And you're right, Ryan, man. I mean, listen, I'm Peruvian, but I was raised in England and I moved to the US 20 years ago. So I know all too well about the American expectations of comeback and the underdog story, right? I was just watching a celebratory anniversary of Karate Kid, right? And Daniel LaRusso doing his thing in one movie. And then Miracle, the movie. It's just comeback after comeback always. Listen, I do want to say this about this team. First of all, I think that expectations should be realistic and optimistic at the same time. I don't see them winning the World Cup. I don't see that. There's just too many good teams out there. Brazil, Argentina, Lionel Messi in his final World Cup, right? France, the defending champions. They're just too good. Even England in their own group as well. But I'll tell you something. If they get out of this group, which can definitely happen, if they get out of the group, which has England, Wales, and Iran, if they get out of the group, then anything is possible, man. Anything. I mean, everybody's thinking. I interviewed Tim Weah, one of the stars for this USMNT side. And I said to him, look, everybody says that this World Cup should be like the dress rehearsal for 2026. Because that's when the US is co-hosting it. You guys are going to be older. You're going to be more ready. What do you say to that? And he was just like, honestly, I don't care what anybody says. We're a brotherhood and we stick together and we're going to go out there and prove everybody wrong. So let's see what happens. I love that courage and I love that sort of aggressive confidence, but it is going to be tough. But get out of the group. That's step one. After that, you never know, man.
It's interesting. By the way, LaRusso's girlfriend, Allie, she was very young. She played soccer, too. I think
That's right.
They had a little thing on the soccer pitch. Anywho, I'm getting distracted. You mentioned expectation. I'm curious if you're the expert, obviously, on this particular sport. In most sports, I'll take young legs, young skill over vet savvy. And especially with the backstory of this particular brand, is it better to be unburdened by a comeback that they weren't a part of the fall down to begin with, that these guys are unburdened by any sense of expectation because of their youth?
Yeah, that's a really good point, Dave. Aside from soccer, I also do a lot with the NFL here and ESPN, the Monday tailgate show we have on Monday nights. And I always talk about the Jets right now, right? Like how the New York Jets for so long have had to carry this baggage of we're not good enough. We're going to mess up at some point. These baby Jets, they don't give a damn. They don't care about what's been going on. They have goldfish memory. They just go out there and do their thing. So there is such a thing to that with this USMNT side, I think. These players are, hungry, and they want to prove to the world that they can do it. And I think something that's really important is that it's not just young and energetic, to your point. They're playing legitimate minutes, starting in some of the best teams in the world. It's not just they happen to be in the squad and hopefully they get a game or whatever. Also, the other component is that MLS, Major League Soccer, is really growing year by year and just getting better. So those combinations are good. Although I will disagree though. I love youth and talent, but like the old David Mamet quote, man, old age and treachery will always outdo youth and exuberance. So sometimes I feel like you need a few veterans to balance the field, especially in the dressing room. I'm sure, Ryan, you know that better than anybody here, how you sometimes need that experienced voice to just be calm down. So I don't want them to be too eager, but this team is definitely fearless. So it'll be exciting to see what they can do.
So I know you're just talking about older guys and experience and all that. And to me, I think it's very interesting, when I look at this team. We have a 19-year-old midfielder, Gio Reyna. He's a son of two former U.S. standouts. His dad was the captain of the men's national team.
And he's nasty, Ryan. He's nasty. He's so
nasty.
good.
Yeah, and then his mom was also on the national team. How is it important for such a young team to have these, these past ties, with all these ties that we have to this U.S. club compared to how they used to be, that it can make a difference?
Yeah, I mean, I'm so glad you brought up Gio Reyna. I'm such a fan of this kid. He is, and to your point, because of his parents, obviously his mother having her own fantastic resume, and Claudio Reyna, who I've had the pleasure of speaking a bunch of times when he used to be the director at NYCFC, the New York City-based MLS club. He's gone through a lot personally, in his family. Anybody can read about it. My friend Grant Wall has written some great stuff about it before. And he moved to Borussia Dortmund in Germany when he was very young as well. So he's no stranger to obstacles and he's had injuries in the last, 6 months, even more than that. He's such a mature human being. And I'm not trying to be sort of patronizing or whatever. He really is so composed, and he's not the only one. Again, Tim Weah, okay? His father is George Weah, one of the greatest players the game has ever seen. The only African Ballon d'Or winner, the only African player who won the most prestigious award in soccer. And he never went to the World Cup because he's from Liberia. You talk to Tim Weah and it's like you're talking to a 35-year-old, a vet. So they have this real mature sense. So I like that. It's just that strategically, sometimes when I see them on the pitch, they can be so eager to want to please. And I feel that experience teaches you not to do that. But I could be totally wrong. This is such a good, talented team. It's just about how you deliver on the day, especially against England on Black Friday, the day after Thanksgiving. That's going to be crazy.
That is going to be a dandy one. And, before that, just last year, a record is set for most victories within a calendar year in 2021 by this team, but it's certainly not an overnight success or an attempt to rally back to the expectations that I guess were established not just 8 years ago, but over a generation. Correct me if I'm wrong, but like any other sport, the thing that the rest of the world seems to have over the United States is there's not a singular devotion to this sport. People are playing baseball, basketball. I often half kind of troll the rest of the world when I say, hey, You're lucky that Christian McCaffrey and Tyreek Hill and Mike Trout and Trae Young and everybody else didn't at the age of 6 decide to play soccer, because it would be a completely different equation going here. But is that the root of this potential rise up here, is just more kids playing the sport from an early age and devoting their attention and their practice time and otherwise to this game?
Yeah, let me just address the whole part about, like, you know, if LeBron James had decided to play soccer, America would be incredible. That's not totally true. There's a cultural significance to how the game is played around the world. There's so many assets. And I'll just tell you, like, you know, I'm not a professional player, former professional player, but I did play it at a pretty, you know, good level. And I grew up in England and Peru, and I know, like, there's such a difference to what you need to do as a youth soccer player as opposed to any other sport. However, the point that you raise is more important, which is like this country, and that's something that the Federation from 2018 decided to really pay more attention to. This country has so much gold when it comes to athletic talent from minority communities, communities that are underserved, especially from soccer, because for a very long time, this sport was treated like, you know, a rich white kid sport. It's just really the way to say it. You know, a lot of attention was paid on college soccer and, you know, the rich suburban communities, the pay-to-play system where, like, you know, if you really want to play at an academy, you have to pay a certain amount. You know, certain kids are just not going to be able to have that. Now that's slowly changing, but more importantly, the Federation is saying, look, let's look at these minority communities and see what we can do. So that's good. So to answer your question, this is a country that has so much gold, and yet it's still unraveling it. And the great thing is that you still have your Pulisics and your Reynas and your McKennies who are discovered in Dallas or Philadelphia or PA or whatever, and they go like to Europe when they're like 11, 12. That's the real gold, when America suddenly becomes a transactional business for players. So the sky's the limit, man. Soccer is the most played sport in this country from a youth perspective. That's a fact. And that's going to keep on growing. So, you know, it's good for everybody.
Oh, man, that's something I did not know. I actually had a conversation with my wife before and said, hey, if our son is good enough to play soccer, will you allow him to go overseas? And if he's good enough, and she was like,
she
no
said,
way.
No way. Wow. Okay.
she said, no way. I'm like, man, are you crazy? I'm like,
what if you go with him?
I was like, we might have to make a business decision when our son is 11 years old. Why do you feel the men's team has been struggling versus the world competition compared to the women as they dominate in world competition?
Yeah, that's a good question. And it's a little complex and tough, because I think the women's journey has gone through its own significant challenges, even more than the men. But I think that what the women have been able to do is rely a lot on the collegiate level of play that really just doesn't exist anywhere else in the world. Like, I come from South America, where, like, you know, forget not being recognized as a women's team. Like, they don't even have like a pitch to practice in South America. From, you know, they're treated as amateurs. So there's a different challenge. I think from the men's side in this country, part of it is what Dave said, you know, just the diversity in choices when you're a kid from 10, 15 years ago, where, you know, basketball in the winter and football in the fall, and maybe you have ice hockey or whatever. Like, that can be a challenging thing, because when you leave the US and you go to Spain or Brazil or Argentina or England, like, that's all they think about. Soccer. You wake up, soccer. I mean, I was just reading a quote from Anthony, who's this great Brazilian player who's going to be at the World Cup. He plays for Manchester United now, and he's on Players Tribune, and he says, you know, I grew up in the favelas in Brazil, and everybody plays. Grandparents, teachers, like, and I didn't care. I would play 1-on-1 or, you know, 3-on-3 with the drug dealers, and I would like go around them and do tricks. I didn't care. Like, you know, it's like he's talking about the culture of the country, and that is happening in this country more and more. Like I said, like, from a participation perspective, you know, more kids are playing, and the less you make it a financial thing, the pay-to-play system, and more, you know, a game for everybody, which is what this sport is about, the world's game, then they're going to be better for it. And this is just the beginning for the USMNT. You wait till 2026, man. Like, this country is going to be soccer heavy, and it's going to be a beautiful sight to see.
Boy, it really is a funny irony that the rest of the world is getting in on stuff like basketball and participating more in the NBA. Maybe that distraction will allow the U.S. to take a greater share of soccer, right? But I do think, I mean, you talk about the nature of American sports fans. I guess there's something to be said about being front runners and short attention span and looking at football and baseball and hockey and otherwise. Does this group need to succeed right now to keep this momentum going? Is that an important step in the big picture for them to make a little bit of hay, survive this group, and move on after this group of three that they got to get through?
It depends what the definition of success is. If you're saying like they need to win this thing, then no, that's not what success should be. If you're saying they can play in this group with England, Wales, and Iran and come runners up, or maybe win it, because, you know, they have a pretty good record at the World Cup against England. You know, maybe win their group. And then maybe you get into the knockout stages and, my God, you happen to beat like a Netherlands. And now you find yourselves in the quarterfinals. That's success. That's complete success. I mean, remember, this is the youngest squad that's going to the World Cup. Average age of 25, only 3 30-year-olds. None of them start, actually. One of them probably does, Tim Ream, the center back, who's one of the oldest, 35. Everybody else is 24, 25 years old. We got 3 teenagers in this team. It's ridiculous. Like, this is a very young squad. So the definition of success is play well, play with grit, get out of the group, and then let's see what happens. Getting into the knockout stages, to me, is the expectation. If they don't make it, I would see it as a disappointment.
Luis Miguel-Echegaray, you've said it all.
You said my name beautifully, Dave. You said you're an adopted Peruvian, Dave. You said my name beautifully. Well done.
I'm a man of the world, international fella, Dave Dameshek. Enjoy the tournament. We'll be rooting along for the U.S. of A., of course, and we'll look forward to seeing that article when it comes out there on ESPN. Thanks so much for the time today, man.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Luis.
Don't call it a comeback.
Hey, much obliged again to Luis Miguel-Echegaray for joining us. You can hear more from Luis on his new show, ESPN FC Daily with Kay Murray. It's a live interactive show on YouTube and digital platforms for this World Cup, and on YouTube, where he gives his hottest takes during his segment, Take a Dito. He also has a new feature on ESPN with Tim Weah out right now. And for us right now, Shazier, it's time for the check down. All right, let's get into it, 5-0. I know you're chomping at the bit to get chomping on that Thanksgiving food. Thanksgiving, NFL football comes back to Detroit and Dallas. Once again, the Lions have hosted games since 1934 and Dallas since 66. Shazier, do NFL players generally like playing on Thanksgiving?
Majority of the guys I talk to don't like playing on Thanksgiving because, first of all, it's a Thursday night game, but they try to sneak it in because it's Thanksgiving. But majority of guys don't like Thanksgiving. I noticed that the Cowboys, they kind of, I don't know, they wiggle their way into like they get a Thanksgiving game and then they get like their Thursday night game the week before or the week after. So it's like they still get their week of rest. But majority of guys don't like playing on Thursday night, like Thursday games, because it's in the middle of the week. And then also it's taking the holiday away from your family. But if you're planning the game early, then you actually get, Thanksgiving with your family. But I played in the night game in Indianapolis on Thanksgiving. I had to eat Thanksgiving at, I think Ruth Chris. And we had like a Thanksgiving dinner with my friends. But I would have to say I wasn't a big fan of it. But I am a fan of playing on Thanksgiving. And the reason I'm a fan of playing on Thanksgiving, I'm a guy that likes to play in big-time games. So if you're playing on Thanksgiving, that means that thousands of people, millions of people are watching you way more than they'll normally watch you. So that's the type of situation where most guys will enjoy it. But some guys are like, hey, it's a game, I'm going to play it. But for me, I like to step up and play in games where it's way more eyes on me and not, being selfish. I feel like, hey, the more eyes, more people can see how good this team is, how good I am as a player.
Well, your Steelers have a funny history on Thanksgiving between Mike Tomlin stepping on the field in Baltimore once while the ball was live and Jerome Bettis calling the coin toss and the ref mishearing him, or maybe it was vice versa. Either way, I grew up in a house where my mother would always lament, those poor kids, look at that, now they have to miss Thanksgiving with their families. I think it's okay given the paychecks that everybody's getting to be there, but this Thanksgiving, it's hard to be cynical about. Look at this juicy game. I don't have to tell you. Look at the trio of games we've got to look at today, or if it's in the rearview mirror, you just got to look at. Let's move along for now, though. Knives Out. Did you see the original there? It's got a sequel playing this weekend in theaters. 5-0. If tasked with solving a mystery, could you crack the case? Sleuth.
So I'm going to be honest. I play a lot of video games that are problem-solving video games. So I definitely feel like I can crack the case. Right now, if I just came out of, just coming out of the studio trying to crack a case, it might be a little bit difficult. But if I get some, coaching, if I have a detective that teach me a few things here or there, then I think I'll definitely be fine. I think I'll be a good detective, but that Knives Out was a great movie. That was one of the best movies I would have to say I've seen in a very long time. What about you, Dave? What do you think you could do?
I didn't see, like I say, the original one. I don't know. Listen, I'm all for a 21st century update. Move over, Sherlock Holmes doesn't need Watson anymore. Elementary, my dear Shazier. I think that has a nice ring to it. Thanksgiving is the best culinary holiday. I mean, that's beyond dispute. It's why it's my favorite holiday on the calendar every year. Shazier, how many times are you coming back to the buffet on Thursday?
I normally hit it about 2 or 3 times. So I'm on a diet where I only eat 2,000 calories a day, and that will not be one of the days. So I'm probably going to have, probably about 1,500 on the first plate, probably like 700 on the next plate, and then I'm probably going to have about 1,000 on the last plate. Because I'm a big size guy. I like the ham. I like the chicken. I'm not a huge turkey guy, but I'll eat it here and there. But I love like sweet potato, yams. I love corn. I love mac and cheese, and I like mixing it all together, so I know that I'm gonna go back for that a lot of the times.
I like the gluttony that is delivered by people just making a mountain on their plate in one go. There's plenty of time, everybody. It's all eaten all day long. Football and food. What's to complain about? Just pace yourself a little bit. That's my counsel to everybody, and I know what I'm talking about. Look at this gut. Okay. Turkey is making a comeback. You say that you're not down with it. I think that's curmudgeonly. I think you're a Thanksgiving Scrooge 5-0. Do you not like turkey? Does anyone think that turkey is as bad as it's very cool now to announce that. I wish we would change the poultry, upgrade the meats. How say you?
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I'm not a huge turkey fan. Deep fried turkey is not that bad, but I'm not a huge turkey fan. It's definitely
delicious.
Been multiple.
It's delicious.
Nah, I'm gonna have to. That's that Gen X stuff. I was talking to people earlier. You're a Gen Xer, so I'm not a Gen Xer. I'm a millennial, and I keep it real. I'm not a turkey guy. It's just not me. So I could definitely trade that out for a few different proteins, but yeah, I'm not a turkey guy. I'll leave that one for you. And you can have all the turkey on the plate.
What a weirdo. You're now the mouthpiece for all millennials? All millennials are turning their nose up at turkey? Put some nice gravy on that, mashed potatoes. I don't understand the belly aching about that. It upsets me, as a matter of fact.
Everything you're saying, you can do to chicken.
I mean, fine, but that's not what Thanksgiving is. It's a turkey, friend. Okay, listen. Also coming back is the debate of what is the best Thanksgiving side. Is it stuffing? You know what? I got to say this. Stuffing in our gluttonous society where we just indulge whatever we want at any given time. How did stuffing wind up once a year, as delicious as it is? It's outrageous. I want it on every menu, in every restaurant in society. But also, there's mac and cheese and there's sweet potato casserole. Does that even count if it has marshmallows in it? How say you on all the side dishes, Shazier?
Yeah, no, I'm definitely a cider. I love me some stuffing, aka dressing, depending on what household you're in. I like mac and cheese. I like sweet potato. We don't have sweet potato casserole. We have yams. It's called candy yams. And then my mom makes this corn casserole, which is phenomenal. And then I know this is not really a Thanksgiving thing, but I like baked beans, so I ask my mom to make baked beans sometimes too. So
I don't like when people start talking about their Thanksgiving favorites and they aren't anything to do with Thanksgiving, like baked beans. Listen, you do you under your own roof, but let's not call it that.
My favorites is yams and corn and mac and cheese.
Okay. All right. I'm not going to argue. You know what I like are those nice Hawaiian
But I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna tell you one
good.
thing that I can tell you one thing I can kick out of the door on Thanksgiving.
Turkey.
And this one might piss you off. Not turkey. Sweet potato pie. No, not sweet potato. Pumpkin pie. I love sweet potato pie. Pumpkin pie is disgusting. And I don't care what nobody says. So.
I think sweet potatoes, when they're cooking up, they stink the whole house up and they distract me from more delicious options. But let's get to it. Best pie, you got your pecan pie, you got your pumpkin pie, your sweet potato pie. You reject pumpkin pie. That's wrong on your part. Number one pie.
So I reject pumpkin. I'm allergic to pecans. So obviously we eating sweet potato pie. That one literally just fell into my lap. That fell into my lap. Like I would eat, key lime pie. I would eat apple pie, cherry pie. You can name it, like raspberry pie. I'm eating all that before pumpkin pie. Pumpkin pie is not. You get out of here, man.
You know what? I've had it, 5-0. We're going to have to agree to disagree. I do want to say happy Thanksgiving to you, to your family, to everybody behind the scenes who works on Don't Call It a Comeback. It's been a hoot and an honor to be working with them so far. We appreciate you listening. And that is it for this episode of Don't Call It a Comeback. By the way, some of you may have noticed if you've been in Times Square in New York City that they put the names Ryan Shazier and Dave Dameshek and Don't Call It a Comeback up there on one of those big boards. We may make a comeback and appear there again this month. So if you happen to see it, snap a pic of it. Send me or Shazier on social media that picture and we'll shout you out ASAMP. And like I say, that's it for this episode, 5-0.
Happy Thanksgiving to you and everybody out there. But make sure to follow, rate, and review the show wherever you're listening to it at. Check us out on YouTube on the Wondery channel. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. And we'll see you all next week.
Don't call it a comeback. I've been waiting on this moment my whole life. Can't call it a comeback. Everybody to your feet, make arenas rise. Yeah, I'm saying from the left to right, we get it on tonight. We do it all, but we don't back down. Just give me one shot, one chance, I'ma take it. Fixing up the game, but these records I keep on breaking.